In this video, we're going to show you how to replace an alternator on your G35 Infiniti. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to undo or loosen the nut on the negative cable and remove that, and then just tuck it down to the side. Go ahead and remove the under splash tray right now. Our vehicle does not have one. Using a pair of pliers, we're going to pinch this upper hose clamp and pull it back. And we're going to pull the upper hose off of the radiator. Just like that. I'm going to tuck it up and tuck it out of the way under this other hose. Undo the clamp on the transmission cooler line to the radiator. We're going to remove this hose. There's going to be some fluid that comes out, so I have a bucket under you. I'm going to point these up, try and minimize the amount of fluid that I'm going to lose. Do the same thing on the other cooler line. We're going to disconnect two connectors to the fan assembly. This one right here, and then the one right above it, right here. You might be able to reach down through the top of the engine bay to get these. There's going to be a little button on each side. You're going to press it and pull out and disconnect the connector. On the bottom connector, the tab is located right here. We're going to push on that tab and pull the connector out like that. On this connector, the button is located right here. Push that in and pull out. I was just using a little pry tool to help me push the button. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to undo the two bolts for the fan assembly. Remove those. We're going to pull this little hose out of the way. Lift straight up on the fan assembly and remove it from the vehicle. Using a 14mm, we're going to loosen the nut on the idler pulley. Just like that. And then we'll loosen the main stud. Loosen this bolt, which will drop our idler pulley down and allow us to take the belt off. And then pull the belt off of the alternator. You can fully remove it if you'd like. Using a 12mm socket, remove the lower bracket bolt off of the alternator. Using a 13mm socket, remove the other bolt holding on the bracket. And remove. Using a 14mm socket, remove the bolt for the alternator. And remove that bolt. We're going to pry the alternator out of its little hold, like that. Now we're going to pull it forward just a little bit. Push the tab on this alternator connector and remove the connector from the alternator. Using a 13mm socket, remove the nut. Then remove the cable assembly. Remove the alternator assembly. Install the alternator into the car. Get it slightly into position. Remove the nut off of the post. Grab your harness and install it onto the alternator. Then install the nut. Using a 14mm socket, snug down the nut. Install the connector into the top of the alternator. Push the alternator up into place, and then install the bolt through. We're going to snug that bolt down. Install the alternator bracket. And we're going to snug down these two bottom bolts. Torque the top alternator bolt to 40 foot-pounds. Torque the bottom bolt to 27 foot-pounds. Torque this bolt to 20 foot-pounds. Install the serpentine belt back over the pulleys. Tighten the belt tensioner. Once you've tightened your belt, it should deflect less than 1/4 of an inch at this top part If it's going more than 1/4 of an inch, you're going to want to tighten the pulley a little bit more. If not, you might need to loosen it. But once you have it set, we're going to go ahead and tighten down our lock nut. Tighten the tensioner pulley nut to 26 foot-pounds. And install the transmission cooler hose. Then slide the clamp into place. Install the trans cooler line. If you lost an excessive amount of transmission fluid while taking the lines off and putting them back on, be sure to top the transmission fluid off. And then slide the clamp into place. Install the lower radiator hose. And install the clamp. Install the fan assembly back into the car. There's 2 pegs on the bottom of the assembly, and they're going to drop into 2 brackets on the bottom. Just like that. Install the bolts for the fan assembly. And then snug them down. Install the upper radiator hose onto the radiator. Slide the clamp back into place. Install the connectors for the fan motors. Push until you hear a click. Give it a little pull. Make sure it's really in there. At this point, go ahead and install your bottom splash shield if your car has one. Remove the radiator cap. I'm going to install a funnel to refill our coolant. Once the car stops bubbling, go ahead and start your car with the radiator cap off. Let it run for about 10 to 15 minutes and bleed the coolant. Once the coolant's bled, remove your funnel if you're using one. and reinstall the radiator cap. Grab your negative cable, put it on the terminal, and snug it down.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.